Is there anything worse? Harry threw himself into a hole during his disastrous trip to NYC action. Is there anything worse? Harry threw himself into a hole with a shallow statement during his disastrous trip to NYC. Hi all, welcome back to the Royal Fantasy YouTube channel. Prince Henry and his attention-addicted wife. Princess Henry could not look more ridiculous or delusional in New York with their entourage of security vehicles and police presence if Netflix was paying them to pretend they are the most important couple in the entire world. What arrogance to suppose anyone gives a rat's ass about their imagined self-importance after their stupid car chase through the simulated NY version of the Alma Tunnel in Paris that took the life of Princess Diana when speeding unbelted with a drunk driver. What buffoon would even consider planning such a stupid, ignorant hoax? These two pathetic losers need to stop behaving like childish pranksters and pretending to be humanitarians and environmentalists, while they add immeasurably to contaminating the environment with their private jets and ludicrous security convoys. The two have both thrown their own families under the bus, keep their two alleged children hidden from the real world, spend an outrageous amount of their time away from their infant kids, and claim to be expert mental health advisors, while the both illustrate serious, ongoing mental illness of drug addiction and narcissistic personality disorder. They have zero credibility to speak at any forum for mental health and are paying themselves for every second they spend on charity events like Invictus. Prince and Princess Henry have no clothes, so send them back to their tax haven piggy bank Archwell to collect their fee and run them out of New York like the greedy grifters. They really are. Not only that, Harry appears to assume those who live in rural areas don't have the ability to use social media. Is he a hypocrite or just incredibly thick and uniformed? Perhaps both. A clip had been circulating on social media, and from the horse's mouth, Harold makes one of the most ridiculous comments he has ever uttered since meeting Meghan Markle. Listen for yourself as he assumes that farmers and anyone who lives in a rural area lacks the knowledge or ability to understand or use social media adequately. Obviously, this is offensive to anyone who has lived on a farm or the millions who live in rural areas. He witters on about unconscious bias, and this was a perfect example of how he took a stereotype based on where someone lives and made an inaccurate assumption about them, and it was rude and arrogant. The suggestion was that because the farmer lived in the middle of nowhere, how was he expected to know how to deal with social media? The comment shows that he hasn't a clue what he is on about and that he is completely out of touch with reality, as where you live has no bearing on your knowledge of using social media, or the ability to use it either. I suspect there are millions who live in cities that have limited knowledge of how social media works, because they don't use it, or perhaps they don't want to. Many people who live in rural areas rely on social media to stay connected, and are likely to have advanced skills if they need to use the platforms for business or to stay in touch with family and friends. What he said was prejudiced and insulting to farmers around the world and anyone who doesn't live in a big city or town. Can he really be that stupid to make such a blunder? Even if he claims that isn't what he meant, that's what he said, and that is what people heard. We can see why the royal family had to be wary of what he said and when he puts his foot in it each time. This is just another bandwagon for the Harkles, and they were targeting a vulnerable group who are desperate for anyone to support their cause. The Harkles jumped on the Israel and Palestinian war bandwagon, and this is such a politically sensitive topic as innocent people are getting killed, that at times it is best to focus on the victims alone rather than to comment on the conflict. Perhaps their PR advised them to issue the statement, but in all seriousness, they are nobodies with no status, except people with gifted titles who are in self-exile. Looking back, it looked as if the duo had made a swift exit because their plans had been uncovered, or perhaps fingers got caught in the cookie jar and the Bank of Pa had to bail them out. They chose self-exile under the guise of having to escape the media and to live a life of privacy, as stated by the Queen then as a reason for them wishing to relocate, but hadn't banked on COVID-19 and a pandemic. With Meghan's rebranding scheme, her PR didn't bank on two major wars breaking out across the globe. The long and short of it is that neither of the Harkles should make politically sensitive comments while using a title that links them to the British royal family. It is misleading and dangerous and could lead to deadly threats. This is why King Charles needed to officially sever ties with them, just as ties with Edward VIII were cut. Back then, many knew that Edward's views and friendships were dangerous to the monarchy and the nation, and it was imperative to disassociate him from both. The government was strong then, unlike the government currently in place who has its own agenda to try and retain power. They would be wise to look at history and take measures to ensure the safety of the nation without the interference of the Harkleys. Meanwhile, Gabor Mate admits he was Harkled, claiming he didn't want to participate in the pay-to-watch interview with Harold earlier this year in the format that was used. He claimed he wanted it to be free and thought it was wrong that people were essentially buying Spare to access the interview. Mate was used, and we could all see it then, as it was just a way to shift Spare across the globe to up the sales figures. At least the man admitted it, but he is old enough and wise at least to say no or negotiate, or did money stop him? That's what happens with greed, or he could requested that people choose which book to have free. But the whole exercise was to bump up the figure of Spare to shift them off the shelves. Then, as if by magic, the Harkles are spotted on Friday strolling in Canoein, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because they need a break from all the PR work and the invisible children too. Allegedly, a passerby, with no name, took the photo. So where was their security? Does it look staged and posed as in the media? It gives an account of what shop they came out of and where they walked. If it's that quiet, how do the shops manage to make any money? And now there is a statement from them regarding the atrocities in Israel. Knew it was coming, because William and Catherine posted one yesterday evening. Copying is all they can do, and really who cares what they think, as they are totally irrelevant now. The statement contained the totally expected comment about supporting organizations on the ground. Really? How? In fact, in NYC, 7-car police convoy to carry them 200 yards just in case. In case of what? Yet they leave their children in the care of, who, granny or nanny, for days on end. They must think everyone is mad. These silly attention-seeking prats seem to dump their children on either old Dora the Explorer, or leave them with the cook and gardener whilst they are swanning off somewhere with her decked out in ridiculous clothes. How could they talk about mental health and family when they don't practice what they preach? They try so hard to be as relevant as the real royals are when they are just overseas relatives. The event was already planned and paid for by others. Archewell paid for a 2-hour slot in the afternoon to speak, though they did try to advertise it as if they were the ones who created, planned, and helped pay for the event, rather than doing the equivalent of renting a booth at a festival for a couple of hours. There is absolutely nothing wrong with buying a spot and speaking. It's how many of these things are done. What's not right is using wording and behavior to try to fool people into thinking this was all Archewell's baby, taking credit for the hard work of others. And you, what do you think about them? Please tell me your opinion below in the comments. Don't be afraid to like and share my video with anyone who also likes it anytime you want. Remember to subscribe to the Royal Fantasy to get more videos in the future. Now, thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you tomorrow.